Welcome back. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. The next session is a much talked about subject in many events and has been talked about as long as I can remember without anyone yet coming up with a solution that seems to have actually broken through. And maybe we have one today. So I'm really pleased. I've got it. I've got an eye. So I'm really pleased to welcome to the stage Tony de Graaf. And
Yeah.
it's the Dutch. They keep doing this to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's how they build my stage. Tony de Graaf. Yeah. Of the Recruiting Excellence Foundation.
Yes, exactly.
Not Foundation.
Yeah.
Over to you, Tony.
Thank you very much. I come to you barefooted today because it's ridiculously warm. And again, I already said it. Thank you very much that you're actually willing to enter a tent at this stage of the event because it's ridiculously hot. So welcome everyone. I'm Tony de Graaf, right? Very Dutch last name. Though being Dutch, I live in Tuscany in Italy, so I like the warm weather. And I work at the Recruiting Excellence Foundation. I'm actually co-founder. The guy over here who's filming me is my partner in crime. And we work with TA teams around the world to help them build a high-performance function that consistently delivers the right person exactly on time in a cost-effective manner. And that's what the Recruiting Excellence methodology actually provides. And that can be, by the way, a full human solution. That can be a human solution aided by AI or a TA function that is highly driven by automation or AI. That doesn't matter. It's the approach on how to actually get there. And today, we actually talk about how to get rid of the resume. It's a hot topic, joking, pun intended. It's the problem that we see everywhere, right? So we've worked with organizations from America, different countries in Europe, Middle East, all the way to APAC. And we have solved it, but I've solved it in the last 10 years, every time in a slightly different way. And within the Recruiting Excellence methodology, we actually brought everything together. We built a relatively, I think, simple framework or approach on how to actually do it. And the last slide is something where you can take a picture of, because I walked through the entire thing. You can take all pictures you want, but at the last slide, I actually summarize it. And the goal is, I do this every talk. I don't want to bring you some hypotheticals and you walk out and you're like, yeah, but how do we actually do it? No, the last slide is take a picture, and this is something you can actually start to implement tomorrow if you want to. At least that's what I hope to give you. So we'll break the topic down. First, we'll talk a little bit about the AI conundrum that we actually have here and why merit-based hiring is actually a solution for that. What it looks like, there are 4 pillars of it, and then again, like I said, how to actually get started. Right, the AI problem, a lot of organizations, how many teams here actually have a target? You need to do something with AI, you need to implement AI this year. Do you get any of those targets? Yeah, I see some hands going up. I'm currently also working for a customer in Dubai, and they work with the balanced scorecard. And the balanced scorecard item for HR is implement AI anywhere. That's it. There is no problem, there is nothing identified, just implement it for the sake of implementing, right? And this is also not a problem that is just specific to HR or talent acquisition, right? This is finance, sales, marketing, everybody needs to show some progress in AI. Because the feeling is that we just need to implement it, because if we don't do nothing, we actually have the feeling that we're kind of starting to fall behind, right? But the problem actually is throwing AI at your process doesn't actually fix the underlying process itself, right? If we don't do a job intake meeting and we don't exactly know what we're looking for, what are we interviewing for? If we know exactly what we're looking for, we're interviewing very structured, but then we don't really have a hiring decision meeting. What are we hiring for? So there are a few elements that you actually need to bring together to make sure that you actually hire in a more structured way. So the question is, what is wrong with our process? Right? So do you actually know what the actual objective success drivers are if you hire somebody? Right? Spoiler alert, even if somebody done the exact same role at your competitor in a successful way, doesn't always imply they are successful at your organization executing that. So the resume itself is not really of a predictive value. And even if you do, right, us as TA leaders, I hope that we have a better understanding of what actually the success drivers are, but we don't take the hiring decision, do we? Do our hiring managers actually know? And why does it actually matter to really, really understand that is because we are actually responsible to tell the AI what to do. Garbage in is garbage out. There are even a few vendors here where I see what they tell you. Yeah, we have AI sourcing or AI matching, or you can use our AI to actually find the right match. And then you keep asking, well, what do you actually do? You don't have to do anything. Just give us the job description. And then they go out to LinkedIn and say, this person is an 80% match. And they will tell you they will derive skills, competencies, and whatever that it is. But it's basically keyword matching on steroids. Because how many of us are very proud that more than 90% of the job ads that are currently on your career site, we probably recycle a lot of them, right? I hope that most of the people today actually use GPT to write some better job ads. But the job ad itself is not the greatest description of what you're actually going to do in a role. Maybe think about your own job description versus what you actually do. I've never had a job in my life where I actually exactly did what's in the job description. So if you really want to implement AI, because you can do that, right? It's not a problem. There are spectacular tools out there that will deliver great outcomes, but you need to tell it what to do. You need to identify exactly what success looks like in a role. You need to identify how you're actually going to measure that, and then give it to an AI, and then it can match. There are incredible tools out there, but you are responsible for the input. The AI is only as great as the work that you do. So that's exactly why you need to implement what we call merit-based hiring. So that is the structured approach to actually identify what is successful in the role, how do you capture that, how do you assess that, and how do you actually compare the candidates at the end and actually take a hiring decision. So the question is, what are actually those things that are of predictive value in the hiring process? I will actually come back to that in a small moment, because I want to tell you first what merit-based hiring actually consists of, because it's a term that is out there, but it's actually relatively simple. It's a framework or an approach that you apply to any role you hire for. It doesn't matter if it's a receptionist to your CEO, but you have to go through these 4 steps. So you need to have a structured way how you actually do the job intake meeting, define what that success looks like. You need to capture those success drivers in a proper way in the scorecard. Then you need to use that scorecard in the interview actually to measure those things. And at the end, often forgotten, then we do everything perfect, and the hiring manager, so for example, you're the hiring manager and the other people actually interviewed, and after the second interview you directly come to me, oh, we hire that person. So why did the other people actually interview, right? That happens so often. And the entire house of cards still falls apart. So let's zoom in a little bit on what should actually be in the job intake meeting, in the scorecard, the structured interviewing, and the hiring decision meeting. So why would we actually do a job intake meeting? Again, it's back to this one. What are the things that are actually of predictive value? And this is the answer. It's a combination of these 3 things. How many of you implemented skill-based hiring? Does anyone do that here? Not all at once? Not even. Very small even. But some organizations are like, yeah, no, we do this properly because we do skill-based hiring. But skill-based hiring in itself is not the solution, because that's just a part of the solution. Because what you're able to do doesn't determine are you always successful. Again, go back to that example. Doing the exact role at the competitor in a successful way doesn't imply that somebody will be successful in your role. So it's a combination of things. So first off, it's the combination of skills and competencies. It's my humble opinion, there's not a strong difference between either of them. We had a conversation about that not all too long ago. For me, it's the box of what are you actually able to do? Skills, competencies. Behaviors, you need to understand, okay, what are the candidates' behaviors? How do they act? How do they respond in difficult situations and when things actually get tough? You kind of need to understand that person. And does that fit the team? Does that fit the organization? And you need to understand something about the future potential. This is about what do you expect from this person? Do you want somebody who executes, does this role for 5 years, 10 years, and that's it, and they do it very well? Different people have different ambitions. Do you want somebody who actually improves? So things about how we can do how we can do the work better, or do you want somebody who grows? So do you expect somebody to be in the role maximum 1 to 3 years? Nothing is right or wrong, but you do need to align on that a little bit. Because if you just need somebody who executes in the accounting department, and I really like to improve things, you're going to find me very annoying very quickly, right? And the other way around. So there's nothing right or wrong about it. You just need to make sure you align on that. So in the job intake meeting, there are 3 things that you actually need to identify. First is the merit, so that's that sum of the skills, competencies, behavior, and future potential. The second thing is you need to lock in or reconfirm the hiring process. For most roles, we have a standard hiring process, so it's maybe first interview, business case, second interview. Great, reconfirm that. For other roles, it's open, so you need to, in the job intake, immediately lock this in. At my previous organization, I had 7 interviews, and after the second interview, I already thought that this was my final interview, every time again. Not great, right? Not the best experience. Fair enough to them, I came to them and talked to them about a role that didn't exist, so it was all a little bit freestyle, but just as an example, it's not the greatest experience, and those last 3 or 4 interviews are probably not going to add so much in the hiring decision anyway. And you're at risk of losing the candidate. So make sure that you lock in the hiring process. The last one, also lock in the interviewers. It's more to create this responsibility with your hiring manager. So at the moment I actually have 4 candidates who are going to interview with these 3 people. So the moment I have those candidates, I'm probably going to have them in 1-2 weeks. I need their availability. If I don't have them, I'm coming to you. Right? Management of expectations. As we go back and forth, calendars are not available, he is going on vacation, you're busy, and you know how it goes. Lock that in the job intake meeting. So what questions do you actually ask during the job intake? Again, I've created a lot of custom question sets and everything, but actually it came down to a set of 4 questions as a baseline. You can always add specific things for the type of department, for the organizations and whatnot, but these questions always need to be in there. Even if you just do that, nothing else, you're already probably making a good step forward in actually doing proper job intake meetings. The first question, we'll take an example. You're leaving, right? You're the hiring manager. So I ask you, what are the skills and competencies that she takes from the team that we really need to replace? Right? Because else what do you get nervous about if she leaves? She's the only one that can do X. Okay, we kind of need to replace that, right? The second question is, now that you have an empty chair, what are the skills and competencies that you actually want to add to your team? See how that is not about years of experience, the education they did, the company names, where they worked, etc. It's about the real stuff in the job. And then also a question, think about a person that you actually hired in the last 3 years that was super successful. Why? Why was that one person, maybe you hired 4 or 5 person, but maybe you were spectacular? Why? That's probably not what's on your resume. That's probably a lot around the behaviors and mindset and initiative and whatnot. And the last question is, again, what I already talked about. Are you looking for somebody who executes, who improves, or grows? So execute for 5 to 10 years, or actually improve how we do work, or think about how we actually, camera in the face. Not distracting at all. No, just kidding. Or are you looking for somebody who wants to grow and just is in the role like a starter function, and we expect these people to leave again or grow in the organization in 1 to 3 years without judgment? Scorecards. So what do you put on a good scorecard? Of course, those merit-based items, so the things that you have identified in the job intake meeting, so the combination of skills, competencies, behaviors, and future potential, that should all be in the scorecard. But not just, let's say, project management, as a thing that's on a lot of scorecards. You need to be good at project management. But if you're the recruiter, again, you're the hiring manager, how do you actually assess or the person is really good in project management? What are the exact questions that you need to ask that actually measure that capability for this function? So for every scorecard item, you need to have example questions. Long live generative AI, because it's freaking good at it. Even the free version of GPT or Claude or whatever. Throw those things in there, get me 3 to 5 example questions, and say to your hiring managers, at least use 2 of these. Can you improve? Can you create the exact question set for all competencies if you work with HR and map the whole thing? Sure, you can do it. But again, that's maybe a more mature thing. But what you can actually do today, if these are the things that we actually assess, what are the exact example questions I expect my interviewers to ask to measure X? And define a scoring. So not just random text. Yes is good. Great at project management. No is scoring. 5-star, 4-star rating. Both is possible. From strong no, no, maybe, yes, strong yes. You can skip the maybe to force people to say yes or no. Both are fine. So now we have great competencies. We have example questions. So how do you actually do a proper structured interview? How many of you actually do structured interviewing in some way, shape, or form? See some hands going up. Good, 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 good. So what does structured interviewing actually consist of, right? Because structured interview is doing everything in the same way, but that's not just it. Because if I go and the hiring manager sits down, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And he does that every time, pretty structured. You assess every candidate exactly in the same way, don't you? But it's kind of pointless, right? It has to be around those skills and competencies, behaviors, and future learning agility that we actually identified. So how do you actually ensure the consistency across those interviewers, right? So it's not about what you do, but you need to influence your interviewers and hiring manager. They need to do the right job. Not always easy, right? So how you do that is with these 3 steps. So you have the prepared questions. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm seeing a different slide on this one, so I was a little bit confused. You have those prepared questions, all candidates get the exact same assessment, and you have the standard scoring, right? The bottom line of this is, the interview can never be based on the resume of the candidate. Think about that. The interview is always based on what you're looking for. Because if you are a TA leader, I'm a TA leader, your resume is probably completely different than mine. So if we talk about your experience, we talk about my experience, how are we going to compare that? It becomes very difficult. You get these conversations, yeah, we talked about your year in Tibet, and right? So and then how do you actually compare those candidates? So stick to what you have identified. These 3, super simple, open doors. Some of these are sometimes missed. You prep the interviewers, no shit, excuse my English. Put the scorecards in there with the sample questions. You interview this interview on these topics, and that's it. Nothing else, nothing less. But the second step that's on here, how many actually prep the candidate? Tell the candidate exactly what you're going to do in this interview. The interview process will be 2 interviews and a business case. Interview 1 will do problem solving and your technical knowledge and whatnot. And we also want examples of when you had a project that didn't really go well. I want you to prep. We want our candidates to perform very well during the interview. We want to see them at their best. Often missed. Please do that. Get feedback fast. Who remembers what they had for lunch on Monday? So if we have some interviews on Monday and Tuesday and we put the feedback of those 4 candidates on Friday in the ATS, how good is the quality going to be? Not great, is it? Push your hiring managers. The best is to get the feedback in the ATS during the interview, typing it or use AI to extract it, all great. Manual or AI, doesn't really matter. And by the last end of business day. That is our responsibility. If we don't do that, the quality deteriorates and you can also just not do the interview. Then the last one, how am I in time? Very good. Decision meetings. Perfect. How many of you actually do decision meetings for all roles? Few hands, few hands, few hands. Very good. What is the main reason you should host a decision meeting? To break the veto of the hiring manager. People are not great in taking hiring decisions. It's better to do that in a group. That's the primary reason. Sorry, hiring managers. So get all the interviewers in there, so all their feedback and all their information is shared and actually discussed. The second step, make sure you only discuss what's on the scorecard. If somebody deviates, pull them back. This is what we identified as the success drivers. I don't care what she was wearing. I don't care what her accent was. I don't care where she's from. Pull them back. Very important. And it is very difficult to do that because people like to talk about a million other things. So if you don't provide that structure from the job intake meeting, you as hiring manager signed off, these were the success drivers. If you don't do that, it becomes very difficult in that decision meeting to pull you back, because you can argue why that thing is very important. If you don't lock that in the beginning, I have to go with you because you're the boss, you take the hiring decision. I don't like it. But if you signed off on it, these are the success drivers, I am more armed to actually but that is outside of what we said, that is the success drivers. You need to set yourself up for the right conversation there. And you need to decide on a voting system before decision meetings, not on the fly. That can be unanimous vote, that can be majority vote, or that can be hiring threshold. It's like a percentage or score. I have no strong opinion on what works great or not. I've worked with organizations doing all three of them. Only the threshold one, so an X amount of score, a minimum of 4 stars, works better for blue-collar workers. But when it's for white-collar, it's usually the unanimous or majority vote. But it works depending a little bit on the culture and the type of organization. Organizations like Google, Apple, they do unanimous vote, 100%. So, and if you see in Europe, I think it's 50-50 between the unanimous vote and the majority vote. What fits your culture? And stick to that. Be consistent. And there is a happy side effect of hosting your hiring decision meeting like this when we talk about interview bias. I think Bas had a good talk and some good points on that just before. Because this is an extremely powerful tool to eradicate bias in the hiring process. Because I can now take you back to those criteria that we defined are the success drivers. And those success drivers are by definition not items that can get bias into the process. You have shown the project management skills. You have shown the problem solving skills. You've shown the technical knowledge. So if that is the score, that's the outcome, why are we not hiring this person? And again, it will always creep in. You can never eradicate it 100%. That's just how the human brain is wired. But without running any sexy program or calling it we're eradicating the interview bias, just by identifying those success drivers, just by identifying how you actually ask the questions, just by structuring those interviews, just by driving a hiring decision meeting like this, we never talk about bias, but it's a very good outcome. I can tell you that much. And why is this so difficult to implement? Because again, I asked how many people do skill-based hiring or something like that. The key thing is you need to implement these 4 steps at the same time. Right? Again, back to that hiring decision meeting, if I want to tell you you're talking about the wrong items, I can only do that if we sign them off at the beginning, because then I get you back to what you said was important. So you're arguing me against your own decision now? So this is why it all needs to be connected. Because if we don't have a scorecard, how are you going to have the structured interviewing? If we just say problem solving and marketing skills and CRM skills, but we don't identify how we actually ask that, it falls apart. And again, that example, we do all the interviews, and we all know it. I find it one of the most annoying things that then 4 people interview, and the hiring manager directly comes to me and telling them the hiring decision, we're hiring her. But those other people, you haven't even spoken to those other people. Very annoying. Oh, what was that? There's a nice effect on it. So the question is, how can you actually get started? So this is that summary slide for all those steps that you need to lock in if you want to start implementing merit-based hiring and make sure that you're not hiring based on the resume. So also here, it's also not the language. We're going to eradicate bias. We're going to stop looking at the resume. You're just proposing something different. You're just proposing, okay, we're going to do this in a very structured way. I want to help you make great hires. I want you to be able to compare these candidates in the exact same way. How we do that is this way. So you're actually helping your hiring managers taking better decisions instead of going to them, you know what you should be doing different? You should do your interviews different. You should have less bias. Doesn't really help, right? That's going into the resistance and you start to fight. This is a way to actually propose a solution. And I think that's it.
For Tony. Any questions for Tony at all? Right, I've got one right at the front.
Yay.
So, How do you were mentioning like not utilizing CVs, but in order to get to that stage where you're using the score matrix and the merits, you've had to go through CVs, because not once did you mention not having a CV in total. So how do you find those merits? Because isn't the bias still there because you're still selecting from a bunch of CVs, and how do you identify those merits on a CV before we even get to the stage where we talk to the hiring managers about them?
Yeah, exactly. This is where, and a good example of how AI can actually be very powerful in this part of the process if you configure and instruct it in a proper way, right? We all see probably the hiring volumes going up. Again, coincidentally, the customer I'm working with in Dubai at the moment, we introduced it's a scoring mechanism based on those skills and competencies, behaviors, and future skills. So they have on their average jobs, I think, between 750 to 1,500 applicants in like 3 days. It's completely ridiculous. There's no way you can actually look at all those resumes. So the AI is actually helping them. Which are the people we should actually call first? But that's based on those skills and competencies, because we inputted them and they are just phone screening them. So that is a way of doing it. If you actually, it is in that sense not super perfect if you keep a fully manual process, because if you're looking at the resumes, you need to decide who you actually call. So you need to find a way to do an assessment at the front with those skills competencies, or you have an AI actually speaking to those people, or like a few type of knockout questions, or actually if you want to do it manually, very difficult, but then you actually have to call all the candidates, which is not going to happen. So it depends, and it depends indeed on the role, but hopefully that helps. You need to find a way at the assessment at the top of the funnel, or some matching type of thing, but not a standard matching thing, because that is usually keyword matching on skills and competencies. You want to have a match that is based on what you defined as the success drivers, preferably talking. There's a great technology called Scotty AI that can actually call candidates. You can have a WhatsApp conversations, call me now, continue on the phone, even if a person, assuming I have the job in English or reach out to you in English and you just start to talk German, it automatically switches to German, so it's also very accessible. So there are tools out there that can actually do that in a proper way. We're getting there, finally, but will take another year or 1.5 years, I think. It's a good one. You had a question?
Yeah, please. Just a little follow-up, actually. You mentioned the customer in Dubai, 750 to 1,500 applications, using AI to thin it down, and then they're moving to phone screens.
Yes.
How many are they phone screening out of those? What percentage are being weeded out by AI so they can focus on phone screening real candidates worth talking to?
With them, the current status is they can't speak to everyone. It is just impossible. So if they, so this is also why I specifically said who are the people that we need to talk to first. It's not these are the best candidates. It's more that you have the list of, let's say, 1,500. It's sorted at the highest possibility of a good match, and they phone screen until they have enough interviews. They have an SLA on some of the roles that they had. They need to have 3 or 5 interviews. So that can vary from 3 to 5 candidates all the way to sometimes 25 candidates that get introduced, depending a little bit on the department. But the fair point there is that is just the problem of those extreme high volumes. It is impossible to screen all of them. You just can't. Or you have to use like the Scotty AI type of technology that can handle like 20, 30,000 conversations at the same time, and they screen everybody. You can do that, but I think it's still early stage to 100% rely on that, but I'm very, very happy to see those types of technologies come up, because that is the actual full-blown solution, because the full equal way is to speak to all 1,500 and do a proper conversation. But I think this is something we would finally be able to do in the next couple years, which would be a massive change for us. Yeah.
Okay, now any other questions? We've got one more there.
Oh no.
Hey, Tony.
Hi.
So I'm trying to understand the methodology. So in the ideal situation where the scorecards are 100% correctly filled out in the process, why would you still need a hiring decision meeting?
Yes, that's a very good question. Theoretically, you don't. We have examples of where it is fully based on that score. Again, the blue collar, you see that more often. So like the scoring threshold. So if you just need a high volume of people, if they meet these criteria, if they hit the 80%, it's higher, 80 to 100%. So yes, you can absolutely do that. In the white collar, this is also why I said usually what doesn't work great is telling hiring managers how to do their job. So theoretically, if I control these are the 5 candidates that came out in this highest bracket, So I, as a recruiter, are already satisfied because I don't care less or between what of the 5 we actually hire because they're all great. And then the hiring manager can choose which one of the 5. But you're absolutely right. It's not, in theory, it's not needed. Amazon hires already in this way. The first, in America, for the warehousing, the first human contact is the first day when they actually arrive. It's fully automated. You hit the criteria. Okay, you are expected to be there Monday morning at 8 for your introduction. And here's all the information. So it is possible. It is possible. And we move more to that. I think for white collar, it will take the longest because not, I think, of the technology and the structured approach that says somebody is a potential good mix, but I think for the hiring manager to accept that the system tells who you need to hire. I think that is going to be the more difficult part of this change.
Okay, we've got time for one more. Any more questions?
Going once, going twice.
Going once, going twice. Thank you
Back
very
to you.
much, Tony.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.